Hi, Charles. Can you hear me?
I can kind of hear you. Hold on one second. Sorry. Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Hi.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm Lori. And
Charlie.
we're emailing. Okay, and this is Jack Reed.
Very nice to meet you. How are you?
And we have a table full of people.
Hello. Oh my gosh. It's so nice to meet you all.
We have a cool little setup here. We got a little spooky ambiance for Victorian murder mystery here.
That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, I wish I were there.
So you're in LA, is that right?
Yeah, I know. It's a shame. It's not spooky here at all.
Or chilly, probably.
No.
Welcome to Tupelo Vicariously.
Thank you. I hope to come in person someday.
We would love to have you when authors are making the rounds again. We are a 116-year-old independent family retailer in Tupelo, Mississippi. Wow.
That is amazing. 116?
Yes. In fact, we were in
1905
year. I know I don't look that old. I'm kind of. I remember the first day. Really, I felt young. No, but anyway, we were in Chicago last year, just before the pandemic, and apparently we are the 14th oldest existing men's store in America, which has grown around the block. It is now includes a hardback bookstore, independent bookstore. So you're
That's
coming
just wonderful.
And we were lucky enough in 1989, Charlie, to have a young author who went to University of Mississippi Law School, where I went, wrote his.
Surely not John Grisham.
Yes. And
really?
Absolutely. And we were one of the 5 bookstores in America that had a book signing for A Time to Kill.
Oh my God.
This store where you are tonight had the largest signing up to that point for A Time to Kill. He sold them out of his trunk of his car. We sold 44 books. I'd written a little postcard to my friends in the legal community, you know, come meet a guy, you know, one of our guys who's written a little book. And those are now signed copies are worth $3,500, I think was the last time I saw them for anybody that got one. So
go check his trunk for me. See if there's any rattling around in there.
I think he threw some of them away eventually before came out. Anyway, all that to say, well, we are hanging in there as an independent bookstore, and we've got 2 just lovely, smart, energetic women who are combining Lori, who's the manager of our bookstore here, and Lauren McElwain, who is on the side. She'll come around before, but who has started her own kind of entrepreneurship called Cooking as a Second Language, to get people just to come together over a meal and develop fellowship, which can become relationships, which can become friendships.
I love it.
Anyway, so we're combining. This is our second one. And Lori asked me, she said, we want to do a murder mystery. Who's your favorite mystery writer? I said, Charles Finch.
You're kidding.
Lisa can tell you this, but one of my favorite weeks every year for the last 13 or 14 years is when your book comes out. I bought it and read it. So
I can't even tell you how much that means to me. Thank you so much. Honestly, sincerely.
I'm not puffing, as they say.
No, I believe it. I believe it. Oh, I'm more determined than ever to come to Tupelo. Do I say that right? Tupelo?
Yeah. Yes. That's an old Chickasaw Indian word.
It's like the most beautiful name too. So I want to go there just to say I've been to Tupelo.
And anyway, enough about us and me, but I just want to
thank you so much.
Where you're coming. But we want these readers who've all read this book, and many others want to hear from you. So I would love
to. Thank you so much for hosting me. I'm so honored.
Well, like I said, we've got a group of about 25 here. Maybe you can see it okay a little bit.
Yes, I can. I see one person who looks like Julie Andrews to me.
That's you, Mary Connor, I bet.
I wish I could say.
You can try. Do you want to?
Yeah, well, we'd love to just hear from you a little bit about how you started the series.
Oh, sure.
Clinics and what
gave you
inspiration to start that.
Thank you so much. So everyone can hear me, right? I don't want to be.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you to all of you. I hope the meal was good. What did you guys eat?
We're eating in a minute, and we have a great chef who's made us some English pub food.
And I have to
We're
wait
having
between that and the.
pie and
Yeah.
all kinds of good things.
So everyone's starving, and I'm holding everyone's food
yes,
up.
waiting.
Well, to keep a long story short, then I was really excited when I saw that you guys were reading the September Society, because that was my second book, and as you may or may not know, there are now 14, and so it was really the start. When I started the series, I was, I think, 24, and I was at my grandmother's house in Washington, D.C., and I was working really hard on this novel that I was like, I'm going to write this big, important, fun novel. And I was so tired of it, and I would get up every day and work on it. And then one day, I just sort of woke up and I was like, I kind of feel like writing about like Victorian England. And it was just out of really nowhere. It was truly, it was just, and I sat down and it was like just diving into a nice lake on a summer day. It was just like, I was like, I felt so at home in the world and with the characters. And I instantly was like, oh, this is what I should have been writing. And I think I spent so much time when I was a teenager. I had never been to England when I wrote either the first book or the start of the second.
Oh wow.
But I spent so much of the time as a teenager reading writers like, I read a lot of John Grisham, but also Charles Dickens and Elizabeth Gaskell and all those great sort of like 1850s and 1860s writers. I was the hugest Sherlock Holmes fan. And please let me know if I'm going on too long and the pub food's getting cold.
Oh,
No,
we're good. We planned for this, so
Yeah.
Good.
We're the main course.
yes.
I remember I was thinking I was 11 or 12, and I got for my birthday a huge leather-bound copy of all the Sherlock Holmes stories, and I was really disappointed because I was like, this is obviously pretty pricey. I could have gotten a Nintendo or but then one day, sort of reluctantly, I dipped in, and that was like my first. I read the whole book within a week, and then I just turned back to the first page and I think from then forward until the day I started writing the series, I always lived in England a little bit in my mind some of the time. And so when I came to write the series, I wrote those first two books and I had no idea what I was doing. That's how I think of it in retrospect. And I hope it doesn't show, but I feel very tender toward them because I feel like I've learned, it's like writing is a lot like, hitting a backhand or poaching an egg. Like you get better at it by just doing it. So I feel like I've learned so much, but I also feel a huge like nostalgia for Oxford and England when I think about September Society specifically. And I feel bad about the cat. Everyone was so mad about the cat.
Okay, so we have decor here. I really tried to find a white stuffed cat that we were going to stick out, but I couldn't find one.
As long as you didn't buy any red food dye to go with it or anything.
Well, I made little place cards that have, well, you can't see it. It has I thought it was like a blood splatter on it.
I love it.
We're getting into the spirit.
If it makes you feel any better, Rick Bragg. I don't know if you know Rick Bragg.
Oh yeah, sure. All over but the shouting.
Well, he's one of our best-selling authors. He comes
Wonderful
out every year. Well, he's just written a book about a dog called The Speckled Beauty, and we are making part of those proceeds go to our local animal shelter. So we're covering your killing the cat. We take it care of.
Oh, now I feel even worse. No real cats are hurt. I feel bad.
Well, that's one of the things I did when I was just kind of reading and thinking about this. A lot of people do compare you to Holmes in terms of like your, obviously the subject matter and the place, but one person pointed out, which you can tell us more about this too, because I know you're a literary critic as well. You have a whole life as that, but that you really put place above, place and setting and characters is kind of shines versus more of a technical detective.
That is, thank you. That is so. That is so well put. Or for what I'm trying, like I'm trying to think of, I think Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Holmes stories, had that. He was a medical man and he wrote those very like, kind of like jigsaw puzzle-y type stories. And I don't necessarily think I have that ability. That's the part that I sort of sweat over. Whereas I feel like if I'm capturing the world of Victorian England, that to me is what I sort of feel in my heart more. So I get these letters that are like, well, I'll tell you, I got one not too long ago that was from, I think, a reference librarian in, I want to say Kansas. And it said, attached, please find 6 pages worth of mistakes from your Charles Lennox mystery. And that was fine. I was like, thank you. And some people like to do that, and they were little tiny things. But then the next day she wrote back and said, "Have you seen to this yet?" And I said, "No, not quite yet. I haven't gotten my coffee for the morning, but eventually." But I guess my point being that I do make slip ups, I feel like, with facts, but if I feel like I'm in the voice of the book and sort of can understand the characters and the Victorian world, which is so interesting to me, then I feel like that's what I really maybe care most about. Does that make sense? Whereas Sherlock Holmes are so precise, I just am reverent in front of those puzzles.
Right. Yeah, I think you do a great job of describing
Thank you.
the places and the people, and you know,
Yeah.
you
The
really
food,
do
I hope.
where you are. Yes. Yes. Does anybody have any specific questions they wanted to ask? I'm gonna have to translate because it's.
I'll
Oh yeah, you have a comment? Yeah.
First, I enjoyed the book thoroughly.
She enjoyed
But
the book.
also, I've never been to England, but I sure as heck want to see Oxford University.
Oh, thank you.
The buildings, I literally was reading it and I put it down and I just looked at my husband. It's like, I think I want to go visit Oxford University. You've inspired me with your.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I love Oxford so much, and I just like wander around in a happy days when I'm there. So I hope everyone, but you guys have an Oxford very close, so you guys are
We do
okay.
have an Oxford pretty close. We sure do.
Does my wife Lisa, who's here too, also loves your book. She mentioned that it obviously it was intentional, but that Jane, who is just such a wonderful character, that her character really shines through intentionally, and that you say that she is plain. I don't know who would choose to play that if you know, I thought of you, you know, kind of, but one of the things that I love about your mysteries are that your character development really is, you know, in addition to tell us about Lady Jane. Where does the impulse for her character come from?
Thank you so much. You know, it's funny. I was thinking a lot about this book today, just because as I was driving around and stuff. And I think when I was 25 or 26 or whatever I was, 27. I'm 40 now. I think I was, or 41. God. I think I was thinking like, who am I going to marry? What's going to happen to me? And so whether I knew it or not at the time, I eventually did get married. Whether I knew it or not at the time, maybe I was wondering like, what is this like when you meet someone and fall in love and decide to spend the rest of your life with them? And for me, Jane, you know, I've always wanted her to be kind of better than Charles in a way. Like, I think she has more equilibrium and poise, and she has a lot more social skill, and that's a part of her character that really emerges, I think, and I hope in the series, is that she's I don't know, I think I wanted someone to love him who would understand him. I think that's the real answer. And so from the moment I wrote about her, I wanted her to be an independent person who could exist in another book and you would believe it, but also who loved this character that is similar to me. So maybe it was, that sounds so sad when I say it that way, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a nice kind of relationship to write about for me that I like.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, we have a question.
Oh,
We're
good.
concerned about the mother.
Yes, I just wondered,
Aw.
you know, after it came to light that he was living and his father was living and being a mother, what happened to the mother? What was her reaction?
I know. You mean Lennox's mother, just to be clear?
Yeah.
No,
Payson.
Sorry, Payson's mother. Sorry. Yeah, I for a second I was wondering if you meant Lennox's mother, but yeah, Payson's mother. I think back then I think I thought less about that. I think I was thinking about it from his position, whereas now I'm a father, and I think I would probably think about it from the mother's perspective.
point,
I mean, it is a book where I didn't, as I say, I hope you are all gentle on it. One of the things I'm very proud of is that I've written all these books and the Goodreads ratings only go up. So they get better as they go along.
Thank you.
But yeah, this book, I wish I remembered what Lady Annabelle was thinking every minute, but you know, it was one of those things where I probably wasn't a good enough writer yet.
John Grisham said, I heard him actually yesterday, his newest book came out yesterday, and someone was he's got a woman sort of heroine or protagonist in this current book, The Judge's List. And he said he learned a long time ago that he didn't understand women enough to write well about women, and his wife agreed with him. That's why he doesn't write. he doesn't why he doesn't write sex scenes, because he said his wife just laughed at the first one. He tried. And she said, "You just need to leave that to somebody else, guys." So,
Well, thank goodness she had already said yes, because that's otherwise that would be a bad story.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, tell us about your education background.
Yeah, let me see. I studied undergraduate. I studied English and history. And I went to Yale, and then I went to Oxford for I guess 3 years, and I did a master's and part of a PhD. And I was studying mostly like Shakespearean stuff. And then I sort of, I had this book come out while I was getting my master's, and I realized if I wanted to do a PhD, I should like really love it instead of just liking it, whereas I loved being a writer. And so that's always been the path kind of not taken, is I loved studying England and spending my days in the library and coming out and getting a cup of tea or something. But writing sort of had a stronger hold on me, I guess.
What college did you attend at Oxford?
I'm Merton, which is they claim the oldest. I don't know. Other ones claim it too, but it's a small one near Christ Church, which is, I think, very beautiful. If you ever are over there, any of you.
I was lucky enough to spend one summer at University College.
You're kidding. That's the other one that thinks it's the oldest. Yeah. That was that has that crazy great sculpture of Percy Bysshe Shelley.
Who got kicked out of.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love that college. That's so pretty. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so like I said, I learned that you are a literary critic, and you have like a great career doing that. Like, you're very well respected in that regard, which has got to be. I'm wondering, is that hard as a writer to then go and, it's probably one really enjoyable. You obviously get to read a lot of other people's stuff, but then you also kind of have to judge it in a sense,
Your questions are so right on, Lori, because that's exactly right. It's, there are times when I've felt a little bit, tiny bit, because it's very two different brains. The part of your brain that can like command a writer's book and hopefully try to say something intelligible about it, and then the part that is creating, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like running on a treadmill versus running on in the open road without a like road ahead of you. You sort of have to use different parts of yourself to write something creative. And so, but I also, I've spent a lot of time as a critic, I think, because I want to understand, like, what did I choose to do with my life? Like, I've always loved reading. Is that enough? Like, what's behind the nuts and bolts of these books I love? So luckily it's just made me like my favorite books more, because I'm like, oh my God, they're even better than I realized.
Right.
What's your writing regimen, Charles? Do you go by Charlie? But your friend?
Usually Charlie, yeah. Charlie.
You mind if I call you Charlie just to pretend that we're friends?
Yeah, we are friends. This is friendship. This is the friendship dinner. My writing process. Well, one thing I would say is that I've come to only in the last 5 or 10 years, is I like to, as soon as I wake up, jot down whatever I have, and then I go walk my little Yorkie, or have my morning coffee and bagel or whatever, and then I come back, and sometimes that page is really useless, but sometimes it has the best ideas of the whole day, because you're still in that kind of fuzzy state between sleep and awake, and your brain is still a little dreamy. And so sometimes that'll be the springboard for the whole day. And if it's not, you just have to do your bottom in the chair and work for 3 hours, and then, get a little lunch and then work for some more. And it's not, my secret is that I'm just not very good at it. So I have to work hard to try to,
Do you have the bones of the book? Do you have the ending figured out before you start filling in the pages?
That is such a good question, because actually in the first book, I wrote about 200 pages, and then I realized I didn't know who the murderer was, which is, if I had to recommend a way to not write a murder mystery, that would be the number one. But now I do something which I think is my own patented system, and if I say so myself, is pretty brilliant, which is I, at the very start, before I'm doing anything, and I don't hold myself to it, but I write a little short story that says, X bopped Y on the head because Y took the money. And that's all the stuff I then leave out of the story. So all the clues will be in that 3 or 4 page story. And I don't try to write it in a fancy way or in the characters or anything. I just try to explain to myself what happened here. And that's made it so much easier and I sometimes will go way off of track. And for instance, I wrote this book, The Last Passenger, which is one of the more recent ones, where it ended up having nothing to do with it, but it gives me kind of like there's a famous E.L. Doctorow quote that writing a book is like driving down a dirt road at night. Like, you know, there's a road, but you can only see as far as your headlights. And so having that little story, I feel like, okay, at least I know there's a road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was that too long an answer? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, that's interesting. It's always interesting to hear how good writers, particularly mystery writers, figure out the path to the
I'm
end.
trying, still trying.
But that Last Pasture is a great book. Well, they're all. I mean, every one of them is we've enjoyed. Is one of the things I enjoy is your little vocabulary addition. It's almost like Corot always had a little dot of red in his paintings. You've always somewhere in the book you've got a little explanation of how a word came to be.
I didn't know that about Corot. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, you know, I think it must irritate some people when I'm like trying to circle around to why a word means something, but I just am addicted to finding out. Like I came across one the other day. I wish I could remember because it was so good, and I was like, I have to write that down and save it. So I have like a little notebook full of them, and a lot of them I can't jam into a book, but I'm trying my hardest.
I subscribe to something called Word a Day, which would be like you know, what you do on steroids, but you know, of a word one day. I don't remember about that night, but it's interesting to read.
I'm always scrounging around those websites looking for what's this mean, what's that mean.
Well, what are the possibilities of one day post COVID of your traveling as far south as Mississippi to?
I would love to. I think I'm writing another book, so the next book I'm coming to Tupelo. I'm going to tell my publicist.
Yeah. Oh, we have one more question. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, Miss Lisa.
So Charles, I was interested in the relationship between Lennox and his valet or valet. I think in Downton Abbey we heard valet. So you know, Downton Abbey kind of awakened us to the English, or me to the English class system and how rigid that was. But Charles seems very enlightened, and you know, his humanity with his dealing with Graham, but still we can't even believe that, you know, that's so I wondered if you and I was reading last night, I was trying to reread that, you know, he was a fan of Lincoln and so happy that slavery, you know, was in the Civil War. But I wondered if that was a big thing with you, but you know.
Well, no, it's a great question. I think I wanted that relationship to be especially realistic. So when I say like, oh, I have mistakes in my book, I do a huge amount of research. I think if you write like enough words, you just make mistakes here and there. But so for example, that relationship, I wanted that to be totally founded on possibility. And you know, the biggest employer by far in Victorian London was other people. Almost like a third of the country was in service, and these relationships did have really unusual characteristics, and like it sort of reached a fluorescence in the, if you've ever read P.G. Wodehouse, where Worcester is just kind of, you know, handling, or excuse me, Jeeves is just handling Worcester, and that was sort of like the end point of it. But earlier, you know, Charles Lennox, I wrote in the 3 prequels, he's a young man, and Graham is a young, really bright valet, and they're, you know, attracted to each other's friendship, and that kind of relationship really did exist. And I think actually Downton Abbey did a really good job. I loved that show of showing how sometimes that upstairs downstairs line, which was so, they were so crazy about it. Like they were so, some families especially, I mean, it was just a very strange time. Like they would cover up the legs of pianos so it didn't excite sexual thoughts, which has never been a huge problem for me, but for the historians apparently was a, so they were strange, but there would be these friendships, and they never really became relationships usually, or formalized relationships, but that would cross class lines within the home. And so I made sure that that was historically founded, and because I wanted Graham to be an important character without being unrealistic. Does that answer what you?
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we really, really appreciate you being with us tonight. It was such a treat.
No, I'm just so grateful to you all, and I hope the book wasn't too boring and that the food is amazing.
Wonderful.
So, thank you. We look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon to visit with us.
Sincerely, I'm so honored, and I can't wait to visit Tupelo. I mean it. That
Wonderful. We love to have you.
Bravo to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.